welcome back to this week's episode of John and T Squared. I am John Cole Morgan, and I am joined by the wonderful Tracy Arnet and the lovely Tracy Bouras. Tracy, how you doing?
I'm great. Good morning, John. I'm presently in one of Canada's finest winter wonderland in the great province of Alberta. So it's beautiful here.
I have to say, I've been lucky enough for you to send me a few photographs of the frozen trees and the freezing rain, and it's incredible. I hope to be able to see it one day.
Yeah, it's a totally different view with the trees all frozen like that. It's amazing. Mother Nature is incredible.
It is incredible because, sorry, everybody, we're just going off on a tangent here, but frozen trees are something that I've never seen before. And it's incredible. How do they not fall over?
Good question. I don't know.
I love it. As all Canadians, you're like, yeah, they don't. It's fine. Love it.
Yeah. They're just there for the viewing.
Brilliant. And we've only got a few more months left of it.
Yeah, this is true.
And on the other end of the world, Tracy, how's it going in Cape Town?
Hello, John. Hi there, Tracy. Hello, everybody. It's all fabulous here in Cape Town. We've had some really hot weather, and I don't think I have ever seen a frozen tree. So, nope, not that kind of, I've never seen anything like that. So photos are beautiful, and I can only just imagine how spectacular it's got to be. But we just get to enjoy some beautiful sunshine and blue skies and lovely clouds, and today it's pretty windy in Fisher, but a nice cool breeze to cool us down. The weather's perfect.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's not so perfect here in the UK at the minute, but that's okay. We haven't got it for much longer. Only another 962 days. So, girls, we've got... Yeah.
I was just going to say the snow was crunching this morning when I took the dog out for a walk. So that's how cold it is.
Yes.
So,
and
yeah.
I think people don't understand until you've actually experienced frozen grass that you actually realize just how cold it can get.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't recommend it to you, Tracy. Stay in Cape Town. You'll love it.
Yes. Stay in the sunshine, Tracy. Stay in the sunshine.
So our topic today is going to be a little bit of an unusual one. It's not one that we've done before. And it's also one that I've not heard of before. It's quilting with unusual products. Now, the reason this one came about, I went to the Malvern show last autumn, and I saw one of the most incredible quilts done out of see-through PVC. And obviously there are various different methods and different ways of doing it, but this one was so incredible. The lady had made fish and she'd made seascapes. And what she'd done is the fish was stitched out of thread, but obviously the medium that she'd used was clear PVC on one side, clear PVC on the other side, and a PVC piece in the middle. So there were 3 layers, so technically still a quilt. And the detailing that she got just by doing this sort of free motion quilting to be able to create these amazing fish and amazing seascapes gave me the idea of, come on, let's try quilting with unusual products. And having come up with the idea, I don't actually think any of us have actually done it. So, a bit of an awkward topic for the day.
It is. I've seen some done with sequins and rhinestones to finish them. It was a kind of a sparkly unicorny type quilt. That to me was amazing. But I personally have never really done anything outside of in different materials.
Have you ever used cuddle as a backing or fleece as a backing?
No, I use like a fuzzy flannel.
Okay.
Maybe for backing. But I haven't done one with fleece yet, or that cuddle quilt, but those are really nice and cozy.
Oh, they're amazing. I've had a few clients bring in some really warm, thick, fleecy blankets. And what I love about it is when you've actually quilted it, there is that embossed look that you get on carpets. It looks like a carpet with just an embossing. Oh, and it just takes the pile down. And the quilting on the back is incredible. However, I will caveat that by saying, if you have a thread break or you've got to unpick an area, I don't recommend it because it's really, really hard to unpick. So I think it's one of those ones you've just got to accept that there'll be a little lumpy bit right there, and you just leave it be.
Interesting. I've quilted not flannel, but I've quilted polar. Well, we call it polar fleece.
Yeah.
With no batting in the middle, and I must say the quilting, the tension can be a little bit of an issue once you've got that sorted. But like you, after that, it kind of all just soaks in so beautifully. It creates really lovely texture. And I must say, the machine that I have is so lovely. I've had very few issues with tension or thread breaks or anything like that. But I mean, I don't go too adventurous with, I just use the same. What do I use? Or not Orifil, glide thread. So again, have very few issues. The only other thing that I have used as a backing was one of those really old blankets that my mother-in-law gifted us, and I think it was like, I don't know, 30 years old. So it's this bright green color, and again, I just popped that under the actual top, quilted it, and it was absolutely beautiful. I gifted the quilt, so I don't have it anymore to take a photo, but really, and it was so, because the material was such good quality, it was so warm when I was sewing the binding on. So yeah, really, that was my only foray into anything other than 100% cotton.
Well, and that fleece backing with no batting, it really does make a nice weighted quilt. So it's actually ideal. I have quilted some in reverse with a cotton top and cotton back, but they put a layer of flannel in it, so it's more flimsy, but it's got the weight. So that was equally as fun to quilt on my long arm. It was just, and it just felt totally different because it was more movable. It wasn't, say, as stiff as batting or as stiff as, something with a heavier backing.
I love that idea. And I do think that the more weighted your blankets are and the more heavy they are, it's been proven that you do actually sleep better with something heavier on top of you. I'm not suggesting for a second we put an iron lung on top of our husbands. but I think
that's the next week's podcast. Don't talk.
But the one thing I will say with the doing the fleece backing is it's a real challenge. And of course, I hadn't thought this through when you try and bind it, because obviously you can't then stitch the binding as you normally would, hand stitch the binding onto the back. So when you do use a fleece or a cuddle backing, you've got to stitch the binding onto the back and then fold it forward and then hand stitch it onto the front, which is a little bit different. And nobody warns you.
Yeah. The other thing you can do with that is run a zigzag stitch all around the edge to flatten it together before if you wanted to put your binding on the normal way.
Now you tell me.
But it's interesting you say that, because when I'm making quilts for kids or any of my grandkids, I always sew my binding on the back first and pull it around and then zigzag it or do a decorative stitch on the front, because I figure little fingers and toes, when your hands sew, they can get a toe in between and it could rip out. So I always machine down my binding on children's quilts.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I've only just the other day bound a quilt that it folded to the front and then stitched it down, because I just can't seem to get that 100%. And yeah, I guess it's, you're not going to eyeball it closely, but I do prefer a hand sewn backing. But yeah, kids are a little bit more rough with stuff, so I think that's a really great idea.
And so when I do my kids' quilts, I also do cut my binding at 3 inches. So then that gives me enough to pull around to the front, and so it doesn't catch the back side by accident when you're sewing it down. It just gives you about an 1/8 of an inch more room. So
that's really clever. I like that. I have to say, I'm a complete dropout in things like this, because I'll always stitch my binding on the front and then be the typical helpless male and look longingly at Sylvia and wave the quilt and go, binding, binding. And then she looks at me and she says, oh yeah, I'll do that for you. And then I'm like, yes, win, score. And she runs off and my binding comes back all done about a week later.
I was going to ask John, like, how do you manage to get so many quilts done so quickly? But clearly the secret is to get someone to help you with the binding, because
the binding does. I won't deny, I do enjoy the binding. It's just a case of I do end up doing so many quilts in a month and a week. It's ridiculous. So I am trying to, because just this week I've made 2 full quilts, one being 90 inches square, the other one being probably about 60 inches square. And I'm busy working on a sample now, which is possibly the most complicated sample I've ever made in my entire life. There's 24 seams, 24 seams in a block, and I've made 12 blocks already, and it's just taking forever and ever and a day. But my goodness, it looks amazing. So I do end up doing a lot more, and it takes a village. My team are amazing. My girls are fabulous being able to do it. And even just yesterday, I said to Jo, oh gosh, we need to bind that quilt as well. And she looked at me and she says, would you like me to do it? I'm like, yes, absolutely. Let me put a chocolate in there for you to enjoy while you're doing it. So I'm very cheeky with things like that.
When you do your quilts for customers, John, do you also do their binding?
So I'll sew the binding onto the front if they want me to, yes, but not all of them do. Yeah. Okay. And look, I'm not an expert. You're not going to win any shows with it, but your binding will be on. Not to say that it's rubbish, but it's just, you know what I mean? You go and see some of these bindings and they're absolutely showstop worthy. When you get to the corners, they've been turned over. I'm just like, sorry, I'm not that clever. I can't do that. So, yeah. But I will say, this week alone, actually, I had a phone call from a client, and I find this really weird that at the moment I'm finding a lot of people are contacting me who don't actually quilt. And what I love about that is it's a case of, I'll teach you, come on, let's get you quilting. And the lady turned around and said, oh no, I'm not interested in that, thank you. I just have this wonderful velvet curtain, and I'd like you to make a quilt out of it, please. And I'm sorry, what? You want me to do what? I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, how on earth would you make a velvet quilt? And then my brain gets excited because it's something so different, and I would love to see how well that would look quilted, because you can imagine that embossing into the velvet. It would be gorgeous.
It would be beautiful.
The problem is she wants to back it in velvet and have wadding into it. So I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm going to need a leather needle for that one. That's for sure. Wow. So it's going to be she wants it as a wall, as a sort of blanket, a curtain to stop the breezes coming in from the outside, which I think would look amazing. But I won't deny, I'm a bit scared of it because I've never done it before, and I don't want to mess up a client's quilt or a client's work. And then you've obviously got the thing is she's only got a limited amount of velvet. So it's then a case of, do you get more velvet to go with it? Do you try and then put the velvet with a cotton? But by doing that, you've obviously got different piles of fabrics that you're working with. So I always get nervous when I get to make a quilt for somebody else, because it's something so personal for them. And if you get it wrong, you've wasted their fabric and it's not what they want. And I always find that very nerve-wracking.
Oh, for sure. If you're going to put a cotton onto a velvet, I would say a light interfacing on the back of the cotton, so it has maybe a bit of the same weight as the velvet.
No, with the velvet, I was worried the velvet would stretch, so I was going to put an interfacing on the velvet as well. But then I just thought to myself, it's going to be like, again, an iron lung, because it's just going to be so many layers.
Is it
then quilted
real
as well?
Velvet? Is it real velvet, or is it the velveteen?
No, it's velvet, and it is stunning. But it's about £300 a meter.
Yeah.
So I've been hesitating going back to her. She's so lovely, but I keep hesitating, thinking, my goodness, if you mess up on a piece of fabric that's £20, that's going to be heart wrenching. But if you mess up on a £300 a meter piece of velvet, you're like, maybe not. And I'm the first one to say, look, I'm not experienced enough to do that. That would look gorgeous. Please send me a photo when you're finished. Try this person, or this person. They would be brilliant at it. And then phone them and apologize in advance for throwing them under the bus to do something like that. But, the reason I think this is such a great topic is that we are doing the in the UK, people are very much against of reusing, recycling, and upscaling. And one of the things that I've got in my stash at the moment that I've pulled out is I've got this beautiful curtain. And it's cotton, but it's a little bit thicker than a quilting cotton. And I just thought, oh my goodness, that as a backing would be beautiful. And it's again weighted and it would look lovely. But again, we're taught in quilting that you need to use 100% cotton. You shouldn't be using poly. You shouldn't be using that. You shouldn't be using this. And there's just so many rules. You never quite know what the right one is.
Well,
or whether you just throw them all in the bin and do what you like.
Exactly. I think you should throw all the rules in the bin, because the poly cotton now, or the polyester thread they make now, isn't as harsh as it used to be. And I know lots of women that use 100% polyester thread, like the Glide or the Gutermann for quilting. So I think some of those rules could be thrown in the bin, as you say.
Agree. I think I've maybe quilted 2 quilts with 100% cotton. Everything else has been either isocord or Glide, and I don't know, the sheen on them is beautiful. And look, I don't do a lot of quilting for people, but yeah, I think it's got a really good look to it, and it holds fast. And it's really good when you struggle to unpack it. It's not going to that's not going to come apart anytime soon. So yeah,
because that's one thing
people don't mind it. Yeah.
That's one thing with me. I only make my quilt tops out of 100% quilting cottons, and I will sew it together with 100% cotton because I use Orifil. But then when I'm quilting it, I'm using the Glide thread, which is 100% polyester. And the finish on it, the sheen on it, everything about it is just gorgeous. But are you then being authentic to the whole quilting process by not using 100% cotton?
I think so, because if you were hand quilting it, you'd want a different thread, because I think the Glide wouldn't flow through the fabric. So I think you are, because I think you develop your own style, and what works for you, you use. Because we've all tried different mediums and threads and different brands, and we find one that we like. So, and then we tend to stick with it.
I agree. I don't think you should make life any more difficult than it needs to be. So, yeah, I haven't experimented too much, because everything I've done has worked really well. So, if it didn't work well, I'd try something else, and then, if that didn't work, try something else. But
and it is the rule of it ain't broken, don't fix it.
For sure. And I mean, at the end of the day, you wanted to add to your quilting the joy of quilting. You don't want it to become a struggle just because somebody said you had to use cotton. So anyway, that's my little perspective on it.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like if you were quilting, say, a small table runner or something on your domestic machine, you might use an all cotton, because then you could be stitching in the ditch and it would be hidden, so you wouldn't want to waste your I'm going to say good thread, but the shiny thread, because it's a waste. You don't see it when it's in the ditch. So there's lots of different things and different ways. And I think what's neat is you find your own way of what works for you and your machines, because not all machines like cotton thread, or they might not like the Glide, or the shiny thinner thread. So it just depends.
Agree. At the end of the day, it's your hobby, and it should be and it should be fun, so that you want to get down to sewing again. Well, that's for me in any case what I love to do. But interesting on the backings, when we're talking about the fleece, a lot of the time what we do when you're doing sort of charity quilts and things like that, fleece is a really good way for kiddies as well. I mean, the fleece is bright and colorful, and it's warm and cuddly, and also you don't have to have batting in the middle. So a lot of the times we use the fleece on the back just to make it cost effective, and then you can do a real whole lot of them. You've put it on your machine and then do 2 or 3 quilts at a time, because you just let it just have one long roll of it. I've done that before, which came out really well.
I've done that as well. It's gorgeous. I love doing that.
Yeah.
One thing I remember from South Africa, now this is going to date me, and I'm hoping we've still got them, but I always used to remember when I was young, they used to have what they called the pep blankets, and you had these amazingly thick, comfy, gorgeous blankets people would make coats out of and things like that. I would love to be able to get some of those and make those as backings for quilts.
Yeah,
Have I dated
that's
myself too much?
no, that's the blanket I was talking about. I have to show you a photo because the pink is very,
It's
very pink.
pink.
It's like, candy floss pink. I actually want to design a quilt just to go with that background, with that blanket. I can't wait to use it.
If you ever see another one of the blankets, get me one. Because I'd love it.
Yeah, no, they are, and they're so warm. Really, they're so warm. You can definitely see how that it's been made a while ago because the quality is just beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
Recently, I made just yesterday, I actually finished another of the, I don't know if you've seen the Tilda embroidery flower quilts. So it's what that is that the people from the Tilda collection have taken a photograph of a bunch of flowers, pixelated it, found 44 of their colors in their solid collections, and then put together a pattern to be able to make a quilt out of these phenomenal colors. But when you look at them, it's just thousands of squares. I think it's 2,285 squares or something ridiculous. And what they've done is making these quilts. But for myself, when I saw this, I immediately thought of a product that's made by a company called Vlizelina, and it's called Quilter's Grids. I know other companies like Pellin do the same thing, but what it is it's a single-sided fusible, and on the other side, they've got this grid, which are in 1-inch blocks. And what you do is you put your fabric onto the 1-inch blocks, or in this case, they're 2-inch squares, and you put them onto the Pellin or onto the Vlizelina Quilter's Grid, and then you iron them down, and they're fused to this stabilizer. And then what you do is you go and you stitch along the grid lines using your 1/4-inch seam, and you then put them all together, and you've got this amazing pixelated quilt afterwards. So that, I think, was one of the most wonderful things I've done with a stabilizer in the quilt. And I've had 3 or 4 clients now bring these through, because we did this as a big project last year. And 3 or 4 clients have brought these through to be quilted. And I have to say, they are so gorgeous and so heavy, and those are proper weighted quilts on that, but the finish is absolutely stunning, having this stabilizer in it. So I think there's a bit more, and the only reason that was something that I was determined to make sure that we used is it was so easy, because it was literally paint by numbers, or put the fabric in the spot by number, and you lay everything out, glue it down, and boom, shing by bush, it's done. It's just so much easier. And I think for me, being able to find something that's going to halve the time of getting the nitty gritty of it down just made my life so much happier. Have you ever tried anything like that?
I haven't, no.
I have done something like that. It was a little class, but it was more about trying to get your squares all straight. A friend of mine uses it for, she has sometimes a bit of trouble sewing, and that just really helps her get her squares all 100% and lined up. The only thing I found with that, somebody gave me a quilt they made, but they used a center panel, and then they did blocks made with the violin in it, was when they didn't sew it on 100% straight, and it was a little bit skew. When you quilt, I couldn't actually get the blocks to line up because the violin was so rigid. So I just had to quilt it and hope for the best. So that was the only downside, is that you can't manipulate the fabric because it's obviously attached to something else.
And I agree with you there 100%, because putting those, the quilt I finished yesterday, about 6 of us all had a hand in making the quilt and sewing different sections of it and ironing different sections of it. And everybody's pressure when they iron, pressure when they sew, 1/4 inch, everybody's is slightly different. The machine does it differently. So there is a little section in the middle that's going to need, how should we say, some friendly persuasion to get into submission. But I do agree with you. Once you've got a stabilizer on there, you've got to be really accurate with your stitching. Otherwise, you can end up with a few issues. But I still think that it's a case of you've got to be accepting of the fact that it's handmade. And if there are a few issues, there are a few issues. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, sorry, just blowing a raspberry at you all. because it's not, it's about you enjoying it and being able to have fun with the process. And if you find a product that's going to save the time on, you can make it and do it really quickly and still enjoy it. I think that's always a good thing.
Yeah. And that's the bottom line with what doing all this is, it's a process and you have to enjoy it, because what's the point if you don't? I mean, I think that's why some of us end up with a few UFOs, because we started it and it just wasn't making the cut, so we just kind of binned it.
And I think as well, people are very scared of binning a project and just saying, that's it, it didn't work, that's my lesson learned. Because we kind of, it cost money, it did this, it did that. And that's what we were talking about the week before last, or last week, about UFOs, and being able to just let go of the project.
Yeah, find someone that wants it or likes that fabric or your color way, and give it to them and let them finish it, because there's some that you know you'll never finish.
Exactly. Is that Abby having a toy, or Jakey?
That's Jakey. He found his little squeaky pig.
Jakey is the cutest little corgi you've ever seen in your life. He's so adorable.
He's lovely.
Lovely
I'm
Jakey.
biased. Yeah, he certainly is.
He really is. So I'm going to shift gears just a little bit and I've been doing a little bit of homework for my UFO projects, gearing us up ready for March. I went, and I'm going to just simply, I'm not going to have any guilt when I say this.
I won't judge you, John.
I went to my 2 loft spaces, and I have gotten out all of the fabric, and I have created bins for everything, and I am slowly but surely pulling a bin out every day. And if I like it, I keep it. And if I don't like it, I am selling it. And I have started the selling process. And I've actually done really, really well getting rid of some of the things that I know I'm never going to use. And I've been able to pass those on to people. It's been really therapeutic, because I found a bin of, I don't know about you, but I went through a stage at one point going and collecting every single Tonga treats that I could find and every single thing I could find on the collections. Like Judy Niemeyer. Do you remember that she used to do batiks? And that was years ago. So I bought a whole load of those, and I looked at them and I thought, they're lovely, they're wonderful, but I have about 14 batik quilts already. I'm never going to use these. So boom, sorted. Someone else has bought them and they've already started making things out of them. And it's been really, really therapeutic being able to do that.
That's awesome.
Don't you feel so much lighter just knowing that that's gone off to a new home, and then when you buy something new, you just don't have any guilt? I mean, unfortunately, I haven't got rid of much at the moment, but yeah, I feel like I'm making progress, and it allows me to get some new fabric in and get excited again about making a quilt. And yeah, I think when you just look at the same fabrics over and over again, you've got them, you know, you should do something with it, but maybe not feeling completely inspired to make something. So this new fabric always gives new sparks to ideas. And I've got some that I cannot wait for this weekend to get started to cut and sew some stuff up.
I will say,
have to do housework first.
Well, no, housework, there's always going to be housework. One thing I will say is I felt tremendous guilt having it and then having to sell it on. And I know that's really silly, and I know it's my own stuff, but I do feel guilty that I haven't done it sooner, but I'm pleased that I'm doing it, if that makes sense. It's just, I think it's always, especially in this day and age, I've been able to, cost of living crisis in the UK is a very real thing, and I know that people are struggling. So being able to have something that I bought, and I'm definitely not getting my money back on them, and I'm okay with that, because it's a case of I'm sharing something else into the world where people are able to enjoy it and get a bit of a bargain and be able to then go and make something out of it that they're really going to love. That has brought me enormous joy. But I do feel really, I still feel bad that I've gotten rid of so much already and there's still so much to go. But also I don't know, I'm feeling quite guilty about the amount of stuff I'm keeping. And I know that's stupid because I bought it and I loved it the first time. Why on earth would I feel guilty about getting rid of it or not getting rid of it? But yeah, it's been a process.
But then again, in another few months, you might go through that bin again and say, yeah, I've changed my mind. So it's okay that you kept it, because tomorrow you might decide to move it on. So it all works out.
Yeah, and I won't deny, it's been really interesting. Like just this morning, I opened a box and I have no idea when I did it, but I've cut out a one block wonder. And I'm like, when on earth did I do? Where did this fabric come from? I don't have any recollection of this fabric. It's beautiful, but I had no recollection of it. And I have no recollection of cutting it out into my 6 panels. And I've tacked the 6 panels together, ready to cut up into the strips. And I have no clue when I did it. And then I thought to myself, is this somebody else's box?
That must have been when we were doing all those online. In the beginning of COVID. Had to have been then.
It's possible. But oh my God, I love the fabric though. I really am excited. And what was really sweet is I went through a bundle and I had 2 really gorgeous panels. There's a company here called Dashwood, and they do some phenomenal panels and some beautiful coordinating fabrics with it. And my friend Lorraine, I showed her the panel and she looked and she says, mine, I'm buying that, mine. I mean, sorry if her husband's listening to us. Lorraine has never bought fabric from me in her whole life. What I love is that she's going to make a quilt. I'm going to make a quilt out of the same fabric. And it's just nice knowing that the 2 of us will have the same type of quilt together, which I love because she's such a lovely work person and such a good friend. It's nice to know that you've got that.
That's fun.
So there we go, quilting with unusual products. I'm not quite sure we had any resolve. I'm not quite sure we got anywhere. But I will say I'm quite keen to try. And I think that the more products we can try and the more things that we do, the better. And what I'm also loving at the minute is there seems to be a much more focused look and addressing by major companies of trying to create things that are more sustainable and things that are very eco-friendly. Just at the moment, Lisalina have released a soy blend cotton wadding, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever quilted with. It's gorgeous. I have really, really, really enjoyed doing that. So that fabric, that wadding, I think that's always a nice way of being able to, because 100% cotton is gorgeous and I love 100% cotton, but obviously it's not environmentally friendly in the slightest. But finding something that's a good substitute for it. I personally am not a fan of the polyester blends. There's nothing wrong with them at all. It's just my personal feeling on it. So finding something like a bamboo or a soy that works equally as well, I think that's really, really lovely. And it's nice to see major corporations are ignoring profit and looking at making sustainable, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they all have their different purposes. Like I always found that bamboo had the weight for the quilt, but not the warmth. So you would use that more in a summer quilt. And the poly blends, I've used those a lot for the kids because I know they're going to be washed a lot. So I think that's great if they offer another. I've never heard of the soy-based wadding before. That's really cool.
It's a relatively new product as well. I think it was only released last year, but I tell you, oh my goodness, it's really lovely. The feel of it, the drape of it, the use of it is gorgeous. It's really, really lovely. I've actually got something on my frame at the minute. My only complaint about it is it's only 150 wide, so it's 60 inches wide. And I've got a 110-inch quilt on my frame at the minute. So 2 of those have been stuck together, and I am busy at the moment quilting a giant quilt using it. And I can't wait to snuggle under this tonight.
Oh, wow.
Is it quite a bit more expensive, John? I mean, I've never even heard. We were a little bit...
It's not.
We're not as spoiled as you guys, really.
It's not at all. It's about, I would say, maybe about 10%, 15% more expensive than cotton wadding. But for myself, I'd rather pay the extra to be able to have something that I know is a little bit more environmentally friendly. And it honestly and truly, and I genuinely prefer it to the 100% cotton because the drape of it is so lovely and it just feels so lovely. So for me, it's a case of it's got to feel really good. Like the backings we were talking earlier. For me, I love those 108 wide backings from Cave by Tula because they have got I think it's 1% sateen into it, or it's got a sateen finish to it. And they feel so beautiful, which for myself, I'd rather buy the 108 wide, cut it in half if I'm only doing a small quilt, quilt, because I just feel that the finish of it, having that gorgeous, luxurious back, just makes me feel really, really, it just feels so lovely. And that's what I love. I think you've done all that work, you might as well just enjoy it that little bit extra.
And it dresses it up a bit too, with it having that little bit of sateen in it.
It makes it that little bit more fancy.
Yes.
That sounds about right for you, John. Fancy.
I love it. Have you got anything else, girls, that we haven't discussed?
No, I think it's just whichever strikes your fancy and you want to try. I think that's really about it. Even if you do one block, like a smaller scale, 6-inch block or a 12-inch.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I think as well with the mug rugs, and because there's a big push at the minute for mug rugs, which I love. Sweet Pea Embroidery have got a big thing on mug rugs at the minute. I love that, because if you've not done it before, it's a small enough project for you to be able to try and enjoy. And if you didn't enjoy it, you haven't wasted a huge amount of time, money and effort. But if you did enjoy it, you then open the door for something a little bit bigger. And I think beginner quilters, we need to remember, you don't have to make a triple king size quilt in your first go. You can do a mug rug and see if you like it.
Absolutely. Yeah, agreed.
It's a great starter.
So girls, I think that is our topic for this week. And next week, this one has been brought to us by the lovely Dot Johnson. We are going to be talking about how do we get rid of our sojo? What methods are there and what techniques do we have of being able to get out of a funk if you have lost your mojo for your sewing? So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping you girls have got some tips. So that's next week.
Oh, looking forward to it, Joe.
Yep, sounds great.
Can't wait. Ladies, you look after yourselves and we will catch you all next week.
Great stuff. Goodbye, everyone. Have a fantastic week. Cheers, John. Cheers, Tracy.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks, Tracy and John. It's a wonderful morning to spend with you and nice to chat and catch up. So thank you.
Thank you, girls. Catch up with you all next week. Tracy, don't press the red button.
It popped up. I nearly hit it. Thank God you said something.